Welcome back to Too Much Future, the show where we play through the Fallout games and we talk about them. I am Cameron, and with me, as always, is Michael.
Hi.
Apocalypse Michael.
Apocalypse Michael.
He's got an eye patch.
Mm-hmm.
In a hook hand, and he wears a big florid shirt. And he clinks and clonks all around with shoes with big buckles on them. And he's got a big twiddly mustache, and he's got a little guy named Smee hanging around him.
Yeah. This is what the post-apocalypse looks like. You may not like it.
He's on a ship.
Uh-huh.
And it's got sails, and he's got a cadre of guys.
You may not like it, but this is what peak post-apocalypse looks like.
Well, he wears a beet red costume.
God, does that exist yet?
Like a beet red costume?
No. Like some sort of Peter Pan, like, gritty thing that's like, oh, it's secretly like a post-apocalypse, and there was some sort of plague that killed all the adults except for the pirates who were immune for some reason.
Is this not Station 11 or whatever?
Yeah, I think
what that was.
Actually, yeah, no. Now that you say it, I think that's correct. I think that's what Station 11 was about.
It doesn't look like it. It looks like you're smashing new territory here.
Oh God.
You want me to cut that from that?
Oh yeah, that's super important.
So that you can have that.
I want to be the guy who made post-apocalypse Peter Pan. Yeah.
Post-a-pan. Hold on, you gotta get the name in there right. You know, there's a alchemy to the name here.
Mm-hmm.
Peter Apocalypse. That's like if we made it, if it came out like in 2009, it would be Peter Apocalypse.
Mm-hmm.
And it's two names. You know, it's like Peter and then Apocalypse is his last name.
Yes.
We got to go back. That's good.
Yeah.
Played some Fallout. We're playing Fallout 4.
Yep, we are.
Did you discover anything new? You getting good weapons?
I did actually, but because I did something that I'm not sure I was supposed to based on our episode map, so maybe I'll talk about that when we get there.
Uh-oh. Spoilies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we did some, we're along the quest line. We're going along the quest line today. Mm-hmm. And we're basically, we're looking for Sean. You want to give the summary so far of everything that's happened in the game? Because we are looking for Sean. I know that.
Yeah, so to start out, we had Sean, and then we lost Sean, and now we're looking for Sean.
Yep.
That's basically it.
Do you know where Sean is?
Well, I mean, now I do, but not at the start of this episode.
Oh my God, you know about Sean and where he is.
Mm-hmm.
Jeez. Yeah, so in the last episode, we killed Kellogg.
Uh-huh. Oh my God.
And his devious cornflake.
Mm-hmm.
He's a robo cornflake, and he's shooting and tooting all around the atmosphere. And so, yeah, we did that. And now we got to figure out how to hack into his brain.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that what we did here?
Yes, that is what we did.
How did you hack into the devious cereal monger's brain?
Well, after I exploded him with a small nuclear weapon, while investigating his corpse, I noticed that I could take part of his brain for some reason. And I was like, well, that's probably going to be important. Turned out I was correct. Because, and here's where my memory gets a little fuzzy on account of having actually played this maybe in September.
No one knows when this is coming out, No one knows when we're recording this.
And I'm not going to mention it. I'll just know that
Good.
I played this in September, and right now it is not September.
Great. And no one knows what year either.
Mm-hmm, right. And I think it's Piper who starts going on about being. Oh no, it's got to be Nick. Nick would know because I have Nick in my party at this point. Like that, there's a place called the Memory Den in another like settlement in like the ruins of Boston. The settlement is called Good Neighbor, and it's like go to the Memory Den and see if they can help you hack into this remain of a mercenary brain that you have. And so I do. I go over to where the map tells me to go, which is by the old state house. And then I get introduced to Good Neighbor, and I sort of get distracted for a little bit.
Uh-huh. Is Good Neighbor like a real place?
No. Good Neighbor, I had to look this up. Apparently Good Neighbor is named after a person. But the location that it's in, and this is also interesting, it is based on a location that does not exist in contemporary Boston. Scully Square, which was, I think in the 50s or 60s, got like redeveloped into a different location. So there's like a, timeline divergence here.
Oh my God. Oh, did you meet the mayor?
Yes. I met the mayor pretty quickly when Nick and Eleanor walked into Good Neighbor. There's some guy, I think his name is Finn, tries to talk tough, and I don't know, it's like a very early Fallout kind of interaction. You've walked into a new settlement. Here's an NPC that's going to talk to you and now like threaten you.
Yeah, he's going to try to shake you down a little bit.
Yeah.
Let me tell you a moment here of yet another weird moment where playing the game in third person just kind of breaks some stuff.
Uh-huh.
So he started talking to me. So here's an interesting thing. I guess when you play, I don't know why this happens, but in first person, when people start talking to you, it like pulls your focus, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of stop moving.
Yeah.
In third person, they clearly are talking to you, but you can still move as they begin talking. There's a little bit of a delay between beginning of conversation and actually pulling focus.
Mm-hmm.
And so this guy, Finn, starts talking to me as I'm like walking into Good Neighbor. And I think I might have messed this up a little bit too, because as soon as I saw him, I clicked on him, and I think that might have interrupted him a little bit. So I start walking down the alleyway. And so, and the footage is going to be here for people to see on the YouTube video, but he begins shaking me down, and I am 40 feet away. And so the camera like comes in, like it's showing our conversation, and he's like slowly turning around to face me, and I'm very far, and the camera has no idea what to do. So it's like bouncing back and forth a little bit. And then eventually it like ended the conversation. It was really weird.
I did not have that, unfortunately. I just had Finn like talking trash, and he's like gonna shake me down. And then the mayor comes out, and the mayor is Hancock, who is a ghoul wearing a tricorn hat and a red coat, and he just shivs the hell out of Finn right in front of me.
Yeah, because he's rude.
Mm-hmm.
Finn's too rude. What do you think about democracy?
Is that what's going on in Good Neighbor?
Well, Good Neighbor's whole deal is like, anyone can live here.
Yeah.
As long as you abide by the rules.
Mm-hmm.
That's democracy to me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was thinking it's more like some sort of interesting libertarian bohemian commune, because one of the ways that this place works is like you can do all the drugs that you want, and in fact Hancock giving you extra drugs for being good citizens is like a common thing. This was something that I learned with him afterward, because so he like shivs the dude, and I'm like, hey, thanks, and he's like, no problem. And then I start digging around. An interesting thing about my play experience as someone who has not played this game before is that of all the stuff that goes on in Fallout 4, one of the few things that I actually heard about, like specific things that I heard people talk about in the game in terms of like content, maybe that weren't like, maybe mechanical changes or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like the one true piece of like in-game content I feel like I ever heard get discussed was the character of Hancock.
He's a ghoul. Hey, smooth skin.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of them.
So I'm interested to know more about him. So I'm like checking out Good Neighbor. I meet some other people who I can talk about later. But the funny thing that ends up happening is that I'm like, I want to know more about this Hancock guy. Where is he? So I go into the old state house, And I like search the whole thing top to bottom. I just cannot find him. And eventually I like go through a door and I step out onto a balcony, and there he is. And the reason I haven't been able to find him apparently is because he's been waiting here for a scripted event that I just walked into, and he like delivers a speech to like the assembled citizens of Good Neighbor on the street below, and I'm just like stuck there listening to it the entire time. But it's all about how Good Neighbor is awesome, and it's awesome to live in Good Neighbor, and those people in Diamond City are all stuck up, and so on and so forth. Oh, also, the Institute sucks.
Yep.
That sort of thing. And then I have a talk with Hancock, and I learn a bit about him. He's pretty interesting. I guess I understand why people talk about him, because just as a character concept, this is pretty good. Like, he was a normal human guy who loved drugs so much that he at some point got a hold of a special like one-time use pre-war drug, and he used it, and it like killed him and ghoulified him immediately. And that's just how he's lived his life.
That's cool.
Yeah. That was pretty neat. And then I asked him if I could help out or anything, and he gave me a side quest that I didn't do, but he told me to go check out some art gallery, and maybe that's what we'll do in like a side quest wrap-up episode at some point. But he leaves, right? He's done. He's like, okay, I'm done. And Nick, who's still with me, he's also here on the balcony with me. He does the thing that the NPCs, the companion NPCs do, where he's like, hey, I have something to say to you. And so he pulls me into a conversation, and then Nick and I have this like really long conversation where he talks about being a synth and like what is the status of the synth in the wastelands, and he tells me about the reason that Diamond City is so freaked out about the synths all stems from this historical episode called the Broken Mask Incident, which is just like, one day, someone in Diamond City turned out to be a synth, and they knew this because someone got, like, smashed in the face and it tore off their mask, and they saw that there was a robot underneath.
Yeah. The fact that there's, like, a mythology name for it. As opposed to just, like, that time when we discovered all the synths. And honestly, if it were, like, actual humans, it would have a sillier name.
Yeah.
It'd be called, like, Masky.
Yes.
And they'd be like, oh my God, can you believe? You remember back when Masky happened? And someone would be like, we're still living in Masky. Masky's happening all the time. Yeah. And it happened like a few years ago. You know what I mean? It's not like, you know, I don't know.
So yeah, anyway, that happens. And then I'm like, okay, cool. And I think that's over. And then Nick turns around. He's like, hey, I have something to say to you. And so he pulls me into another conversation. So, like,
I've got some stuff saved up.
Yeah, he does. For like 15 minutes of, I was looking at my footage before I was doing this, and like 15 minutes of my footage is just me talking to Nick. So this time, he tells me about his history. Which is that he is a synth and he doesn't remember anything before waking up in the wasteland. As far as he is kind of aware, like, the Institute builds synths and then for reasons unknown, like, cuts them loose or cut him loose specifically. He, like, woke up in a junk heap. He is a sort of copy or a brain image of a pre-war policeman. For some reason. Yeah.
Oh, I had this conversation, but didn't catch this part.
Yeah, no, he talked to me about that, where he was like, yeah, I have the memories of a pre-war policeman. I don't know why. And then he sort of talks about, like, his early days in the wasteland and how people were suspicious of him because he was a synth, but basically he made himself useful. He, like, found a settlement, and he, like, recovered, I think it was at Diamond City, he, like, recovered a girl who had run away. Very, like, just, you know, repetition of the hard-boiled Private Eye kind of stuff. But one interesting thing that came out of this, to me at least, was that the, like, first settlement, I think, that he ever found and sort of, like, I guess acculturated himself in, like, learned about being in the wasteland and stuff and, like, made friends with the local kids. That settlement is one he has fond memories of, and also it's gone. It's just been, like, destroyed.
Uh-oh.
And I think that this is interesting because this is now the second time a companion has told me their backstory, and it is, yeah, I come from a settlement that doesn't exist anymore.
Huh.
Which, I don't know, I turned that over in my head a little bit, because that was also Piper's story, right? It's like, I grew up in a settlement that doesn't exist now. And I think one thing that this does is it makes you think about the settlement system in this game, right? It underscores maybe the fact that you're starting all these settlements, they may not all last, there are going to be raiders that are going to come in, whatever. That's a pretty charitable read. A more uncharitable...
to even push the charitable read like one step further, right? It's that you've seen the settlements that you've had to deal with here. It's like 3 people standing around one building.
Yeah.
And, and it's your job to like go make it more permanent.
Right.
And so the like slightly even more charitable thing is that you've seen what settlement, big quotation marks, what settlements look like in the wasteland. And maybe there's a reason why lots of them appear and disappear. Mm-hmm. But anyway, sorry, you were going to have a negative read.
Yeah, a sort of less charitable read. And this is just one of those things that is produced by, stacking this up against Fallout's past and seeing where this might have been different. In a, let's say, Fallout 1, 2, or New Vegas kind of mode, maybe more 2 in New Vegas, you would have characters who are from places that then you go, and then you have interactions with people who know them. And that's just like one of the upshots of, I'm from a settlement that's been destroyed, is that you don't need to write all of that stuff or produce all of that content.
Right. I mean, when you're right. That's true. The other thing I guess that is interesting to me is that it really kind of demonstrates something that we've seen on the Raider side, when we're reading like Raider diaries that are just about like the minutia of Raider bands, like over and over again, that the Boston Wasteland, whatever it's called, is experiencing consolidation. Much like New Vegas, there's we exist at a tipping point. Fallout 4 existed like a historical tipping point for the Wasteland here, which is like the balance of power is changing. Oh my God, did you hear that the balance of power in the DC universe has changed? Do you think they said that when the bombs dropped? Do you think there was a bullhorn? It's like the balance of power is changing in the Fallout verse.
I'm absolutely sure.
But so we're having that. The Brotherhood of Steel are here in their super spaceship, whatever the hell that thing is, in their Final Fantasy VII boat. The Institute are clearly like making new moves going on here, and the Minutemen are back. They were at the going extinct, and there's some other factions that maybe you'll talk about later in this episode. So I think that might be part of it too, is it's like there is this demonstration that things are a changing in this old wasteland here. And but I think you're right. I think the cynical read is probably the most accurate, which is that it's very easy to like never have to write barks about characters recognizing one another if everyone else is dead.
Yeah.
Like ultimately.
Goodness gracious.
Well, so who would you take Kellogg's old brain noodle to?
So the Memory Den is this place over on the edge of Good Neighbor. And like I said, I met some other people here. There's like a hotel. There's an interesting woman who runs the desk at the hotel. There's a robot that runs a weapon shop. Did you talk to the robot, Cleo?
Yeah, I think I forgot to write her name down, but it's like Linda or something.
It's Cleo.
Cleo, that's right. And she's a horny robot.
And there's like definitely some sort of like queer representation going on there with her talking about how like, I was built as a robot, but I decided I'm a woman and I'm all woman.
Was queer representation in big quotation marks there?
I mean, yes. I don't quite know how to read this because I've never met one of these robots before.
Yeah, in this thing that we played through, I think I'd never seen any of these robots before, and then I think there's 3 that I ran into here. So,
oh wow,
there's one in the underground base of a as yet unnamed faction.
Yeah.
And I met a random one somewhere else too.
Yeah, it just when I encountered it, it reminded me very much of like Kentucky Route Zero. I'm thinking of like Junebug in that game, and how that like character operates as a kind of allegory for transness and like the trans experience.
Right.
It's very.
I guess that's I guess my question is Fallout 4 trying to do something that is interesting here, or is it a joke about a robot who believes she's a woman?
Yeah.
And I couldn't really figure that out.
Yeah, I in my dialogue with her, I was sort of like, I don't know how this is going to land, but like my character affirmed Cleo's identity in a way that didn't seem like a joke, but then also like the way that the character is sort of represented feels very stereotypical in a way that I don't know how it sits with me.
Hard to know.
Yeah. Anyway, aside from that, I go into the memory den, and boy, is this place weird. There's a woman here named Irma who looks like she stumbled out of BioShock Infinite.
Or that weird, like a purple space from Twin Peaks: The Return. You know what I mean? It looks like you could turn a corner and she would just be hanging out there.
Yeah, and she just she's like a very like 1950s like boudoir burlesque kind of outfit. And she's like smoking a cigarette, lying on a Chase lounge, and you can talk to her, but she has like almost nothing to say. There's nothing to know about her. She has a terminal in the back that I like hacked into. Absolutely nothing there except for like some very bare bones files on like typical clients, because what happens in the memory den is that there are these machines that allow you to relive memories, yours or others, and people love to come and experience memories, and some of them are, basically addicts. There's one guy who's like always there, and he like does, I guess, maintenance or something. I can't remember the precise details, but there's a guy there who's like very into this. And down in the basement, there is a woman named Dr. Amari, and she's like sort of the technical help, and she's going to help us figure out what to do with Kellogg's brain to use these memory pods or whatever to get into Kellogg's past. Before we get into that, I just want to emphasize how weird it is that none of this is explained. Like, and I don't mean like, oh, I need like the full like granular explanation of where all of this technology came from, but like literally there's just no story to any of this stuff. Like when I say that Irma has nothing to say, what I expected was kind of in a typical Fallout mode of like being able to have just a few lines with this NPC where they give like their history or gesture at some sort of past or like, things that happened that brought them to this point. No, Irma's just here. She runs this place and she has all of these memory pods, which are like clearly modeled on the VR machines from, whatever the, weird
Fallout 3?
Yeah, the Fallout 3, whatever that neighborhood was called, whatever.
Yeah, where your dad was.
Yes, right. It's like that kind of thing.
The dad pods.
Yes. So I expected like some little bit of like, oh yeah, these are a modified version of the dad pods that we pulled out of some old government base or whatever. No, not even that.
I mean, you were left to assert that. Mm-hmm. Well, that's part of it, right? We talked about this, I think, maybe 2 episodes ago, right? You can really feel the dependence on voice acting, right? Mm-hmm. Like, because even the previous games would have like a few voice acted lines, and then those would sometimes cut, right? And then you would just get like text and random shit. But here it's just like, because of all of this intensity of dialogue, where like people are talking, and then you're responding to everything because everything is response. Mm-hmm. There's not really a lot of spot for info dumping, as would traditionally be there. And where there would be info dumping, which is in the terminals, it's just not there.
Yeah.
Just for some reason, like you could imagine no one ever mentioning that, and that would be in a terminal in Fallout 3.
Mm-hmm. That's why I hacked the terminal.
Fine. Yeah, right? We went down into the local what do you call it, CIT vault or whatever, and there we found a bunch of memory stuff. Here's a reference to Fallout 3 that's funny. Ha 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 ha. Now we have created our own business.
Right.
Like you can imagine that being in a terminal in the previous game. It's just not here. And I wonder, is that Why? Is it because the Fallout 4 developers are not interested in doing that? That's an older Fallout style that they don't find as compelling. Is it, and this is a real, actual transformation in game development that's worth thinking about. Is it because the audience will do that work?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, either the audience who's playing the game, who's played the previous games, will to themselves do what we just did, which is like, oh, these are those things from those previous games. Or is it that they will get on Reddit and talk about it and make YouTube videos about it, right? Because that really is when Fallout 4 is coming out. We are fully in the era of the explainer video, of explainer content, of kind of service journalism around lore and connection. Top 12 references in Fallout 4 to the previous Fallout games that you've missed. And so I think that might be part of it too, is that this is a different media ecology than the previous games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. It's, I don't know, slightly disappointing as someone who likes it when my game tells me a story rather than, urges me to go figure out what someone on Reddit thinks the story is. But anyway, Amari is like, hey, yeah, I can do this thing for you. We've got to, route everything through Nick's head for, science fiction gobbledygook reasons.
Yeah, it's cool. He's like the host.
Yeah.
Or, yeah. It's like what do you call it? Like, he's the server, and you got to peruse that. You got to live through the server of the memories. I think it's fun.
Yeah. Yeah, and so you hop in, that all gets set up. You hop in the pod, and then we get an interesting recycling of the hallucinatory dream sequences from the Point Lookout DLC from Fallout 3.
I don't even remember that.
I mean, it's sort of
I believe you.
Yeah, it's sort of like that. And it's also, again, because of the memory pods or whatever, it's, an evocation of the stuff from Fallout, the dad pods from Fallout 3 as well.
Right.
But basically, this ends up being a long interactive cutscene where we're going through Kellogg's memories and finding out why he is, or how he became the guy that he was when we found and killed him, which I understand and think is sort of interesting, but is also sort of flummoxing because I cannot tell why this game wants me to give so much of a shit about him.
I really don't know. It's a kind of a brilliant moment of we go into Kellogg's brain. Mm-hmm. We go into the old cereal man's demented brain. And I thought, because it's been a long time since I played this game, and I was like, this is going to be like, every villain is the hero of their own story kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not really that. And if it is that, it's just kind of half-assed, right? It's like, he grew up in the NCR. And that's kind of interesting, I guess. But he's like, he grew up in the NCR. He had an abusive father. Because of that, he killed people for a living. His whole family got killed because he did that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now he's here.
Yeah.
And he's like a hitman for a fixer kind of for the Institute. The end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, his mom told him when he was a little kid and they were listening to the NCR elections or the incorporation votes on the radio. His mom was like, the government's never going to help you, kid. The only thing that's going to help you is this. And she whips out the gun and hands it to him. And he's 8 years old.
Yep.
And then he grows up and he gets a wife and they have a baby. And the wife is they're living in San Francisco. So Eleanor can hop up on their kitchen counter and look out the window and see what's going on in right. San Francisco. And it's just a bridge. He's working for the She. Do you remember the She, everyone? No? Well, but then she's like,
you're telling me you don't remember the She?
And his wife is like, oh, gosh, I don't know. You're just getting mixed up with some tough people. And he's like, don't worry. This is going to protect us. Whips out his gun. And then the people end up killing them. And then he's wandering the wasteland being an asshole. And he's reflecting. This is the other weird thing is he is basically narrating his life to you in voiceover, even though we're supposed to be in his memories.
Yeah, it's a real you can feel the producer notes here, which are I just don't think it's clear enough what's happening. And like some poor designer sitting there, like head in hands, being like, all right, what if I had this guy explain everything as he saw it? Would that make it clear enough?
Yes, it feels so doubled down, because it's like these scenes that you can walk through and like you see them play out, and then you can like interact with things, and by interact it's like go up to everything and then just get him explaining the sort of obvious context of what you just saw.
Yep.
And then eventually you get to the point where he's in the vault where he killed your spouse and stole your baby. Whatever. I go over and I look into my cryo chamber, and there's a huge flub here. Huge mistake.
Oh no.
Mm-hmm. So you'll recall that Eleanor didn't put on all of her makeup and mascara and change her hairstyle until she got blackpilled.
Oh my god.
Right?
That's true.
Uh-huh.
I do remember that.
So in the cryo chamber, in his memory, she already has that stuff, even though canonically she did not put on that makeup until she had already gotten out of the pod and like ventured out into the wasteland. So Bethesda,
his memory was polluted by seeing her later in life as he was about to die.
Okay.
Easily explained.
Okay, there we go. Thank you, Reddit. I was going to say, Bethesda, you're on watch. But
now you're not.
Yeah, now you're fine. Good job, Bethesda. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
It was easily explained. Phew!
Thematically, I do think this is interesting because, like, the obvious sort of like story thing that's happening here is Kellogg is being set up as a kind of foil to your character, because he's a guy who had a family, lost the family, became hardened, became a huge asshole, did evil, and like, right, like that's sort of like what's being played with here is like, now you play your character as someone in kind of this weird similar position, like both kind of thrust out of time, because the other thing about Kellogg is that because he's working with the Institute, they've extended his life. He like if he is listening to kind of like the earliest NCR incorporation votes in that first scene, like he's considerably older than like a baseline human or whatever.
Yeah, you can tell he gets older because he becomes bald.
Yes. But then so like, you know, there's obviously like some thematic work being done here that I do think is interesting. It's like, oh, okay, like, yeah, like I see A for effort, right? Even though I don't care about Kellogg in quite the way this thing seems to think I'm going to, I see what you're trying to do, and that's good.
Yeah, the weird thing about it really is that he is, by the time you get all this information, he's dead.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, he was an interesting kind of foil, I guess. I mean, you know, and maybe he's like this is what you could become. He's a cautionary tale.
Yeah.
Don't become the cereal man. Don't invent Frosted Flakes. They're too good. But yeah, you know, but the end of this, notably, you like walk through these memories, Max Payne style. And at the very end, you see the old cereal man himself sitting there with a child.
Dun, dun, dun.
Sean.
And then
Sean. And he says, the old man running the world. Told him
guy
to
JC Denton cosplay comes in.
Yes. And then a guy in JC Denton cosplay comes in, and they are coursers. And coursers are the people who hunt down synths. And he says, Sean, come over here and stand near me. And they teleport away.
Yeah.
Did this blow your mind?
Not really.
Why not?
Well, why would it blow my mind? It just feels like, oh, okay.
They can teleport. That doesn't blow your mind. That's what the Shadow Institute, that's how they're so shadowy. They teleport.
I mean, sure, they could have done anything. They could have had like little personal spacecraft or something. Like,
No, but you could see those. Teleport.
I think teleportation. Okay, whatever.
You're just anti-teleportation is what you're working around to say.
I guess. I mean, no, I'm not.
You just hate it.
I just feel like it stretches things just a little bit too far, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Like, you know, I understand the Institute is, I guess, working off of pre-war technology. They didn't have like the big setback of the 200 years of nuclear winter or whatever, or, you know, they found some way to deal with it. But it just... the ability to teleport so fundamentally changes like the composition of like the Fallout universe that I do not see a way in which there is a future game in this setting that does not handily retcon out the possibility of this ever happening again.
Oh yeah, you
Right?
got to get rid of the teleporting.
Like-
well, yeah, because the why? Because spoilers for the end of the episode, you build your own teleporter.
Yeah,
So why don't we just build our own teleporters everywhere?
right.
But you know, here's the thing. I want to suggest a thing to you. There's this thing called fast travel.
Uh-huh.
We've been teleporting the whole time. It's been right under our nose the whole time.
Damn.
Ever since after Fallout 2 when it stopped showing the little thing dooting across the map. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Ever since that, we've been teleporting every time. And just no one's ever mentioned it.
So, in fact, the Institute is just doing the basic startup move of taking a thing that already exists and commodifying it.
Exactly. You slap a big blue light on it. You put a guy in a silly outfit near it. The end.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, no, you're right. The teleporting is quite odd. I don't remember. I can't remember if this happens or not, but I would not be shocked if we got to the end of this game and they were like, and now teleportation has been deleted forever.
Right.
It's impossible now. I don't remember that happening, but I would be shocked if it did. But yeah, so we find out that there's the teleportation stuff going on. And then we gotta, we've learned in this memory also that Kellogg's hunting for a guy who escaped the Institute named Virgil. And that when they teleport away, that's the end of the memory.
Yeah.
Just to close out on that. But we're left with a couple pieces of information, you know, a couple leads to follow up on. One is that you can teleport into the Institute, so that's notable. And the other one is that there's this escaped scientist named Virgil that Kellogg was on the hunt for at some point. Did you go find Virgil?
Well, I wandered out, and because the Virgil is supposedly in the Glowing Sea, which is the impact site for the nuclear payload that I think was, you know, supposed to hit Boston directly, but like was just a little bit askance of that and took out sort of, I don't know, like Bridgewater or something. And
damn.
Yeah.
R.I.P. to thee, Bridgewater.
I'm just thinking, like, this is the weird thing about this game is, like, living in this area in real life. It's like, oh, yeah, those are all the places that are gone now. So I start heading out there, and I'm like, oh, okay, it's a nuclear wasteland. It's, in a weird move, recycling things from other games, it's the Divide from the end of New Vegas again. It's like just a pure wasteland. It's extremely radioactive. Luckily, Nick is still my companion, so he doesn't care. I know if I had a human companion, I think they would, you know, very shortly die or whatever, or, you know, collapse infinitely. I am supposed to be wearing my power armor, I assume, but screw that. I'm wearing a hazmat suit that I picked up at some point. And there's like death claws out here, and it's just like, oh, this sucks. I hate this. So I turn around and leave. I don't care.
Yeah, it sucks. It's like not... Yeah, you just look around. It's like, oh, giant rad scorpion over there. Deathclaw here. Just a bunch of horse shit.
So I get so frustrated with it. Like, I just do not like it. So I leave. I go back into the thing, and I bop around for a little bit. I do some side quests. I decide to follow the Freedom Trail to see some sights around Boston. You know, I see the Common, I see Faneuil Hall, I see the old corner bookstore. That's great. Then I get to the Old North Church, and then there's like this bizarre puzzle that I'm supposed to be solving because I guess at some point I was told that this is relevant to a faction. The faction turns out to be these people called the Railroad, who are like folks working to smuggle synths out of the Commonwealth. And there's a weird, interesting thing going on here where obviously the railroad is a allusion to the Underground Railroad, the network of people who smuggled enslaved folks out of the South and the United States in general prior to the Civil War. So that's happening, but also their headquarters are in the Old North Church where Paul Revere supposedly hung his lanterns before his midnight ride or whatever. So we're getting some really, like, here is how this occurred to me. Between Fallout 3 and Fallout 4, there is something about the Bethesda approach to Fallout that is so invested in, like, touching on capital A America. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like this fusion of pre-Civil War, like 19th century thing with originary mythology of American Revolution stuff, and like those things being treated as maybe fungible or like it's no problem just like linking these together because it's all America, the big beautiful melange. I think that's interesting. Anyway, the railroad is odd. They're just a bunch of people in a basement. They're like, hey, do you want to join us? And I'm like, yeah, sure, because Eleanor doesn't like slavery. And I guess what's going on with the synths is slavery because Nick seems like a person.
Yeah, I don't know. We need more info to do it because that part of the deal that we've learned a few times is like original synths were just robots,
right?
And now they're like people. And it was like, well, where's the ship of Theseus on this one?
Right.
Where it's like totally cool to dominate a robot and then totally not cool to dominate her. And I don't know where the Fallout games come down on that. So I'm curious about learning about it. But yeah, in a general sense, I think the synths probably shouldn't be, subordinated and dominated by the Institute.
Right. All the millions of synths that I've killed up to this point, they're essentially just, another form of goblin for the game to throw at me. But then the game's response to that critique, of course, would be like, well, they've been programmed to be goblins by the Institute. And that's what we're trying to forestall here.
Yeah, they don't have free will to not be a goblin.
Right.
That's raiders. And it's totally cool to kill them because they made a choice to be bad.
So yeah, I like do that. And so I join the railroad and I do a couple of quests for them that are just about like learning the ins and outs. They introduce me to one of their agents, this guy named Deacon, who is also a synth, who keeps like he's kind of a fun character because he keeps like changing his like skin and, well, not really his skin, but like his hairstyle and his clothing.
He's Deacon's fucking rad. He's such a cool dude. He like changes his outfit because he's an infiltrator.
Right.
That's his thing.
Right. And the railroad sort of in a weird mirror of the synth problem in general, right? The railroad like infiltrates and like has agents in various places, and he's one of those. And an odd thing that I thought about is that his ability to like change himself constantly is explicitly tied to him being a synth. Here's the interesting thing. I can do that too as the player character, right? They're like cosmetic surgeons and things in the game. So, perhaps Eleanor isn't as real as she seems to be. Perhaps there's...
Wow.
Oh no, but for real. He like sends me out, or like he doesn't send me out. He goes out with me. And we track down some sort of agent or informer or like observer. There's all this like sort of like spy novel stuff going on where you have to have like a code, like when you have like a code phrase. If you meet someone who's a railroad agent, they ask you if you have a Geiger counter and you're supposed to say that yours is in the shop. Yeah. But I meet a guy who's like hanging out and he does this. I like, I prove to Deacon that I can do all this stuff, do all the download spy stuff. And the guy informs us that there was like a safe house. It wasn't always the Old North Church. They were in a coffee shop called Slocum Joe's, which is apparently the Fallout version or the Fallout universe's version of Dunkin' Donuts. Yeah. their headquarters was in a donut shop or a coffee shop, and I was like, that's weird. Why would it be in a coffee shop? But they all got cleared out because the Institute sent in a bunch of synths, and the people that I've been dealing with under the church have been clear that like they are the remainders. They're the people who escaped. And so then Deacon informs me as we're going into the coffee shop through kind of like this back entrance, and I'm like, there's a back entrance to the coffee shop? He was like, this wasn't a regular coffee shop. It was, in fact, a secret, like, government outpost, and the coffee shop was just a cover.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. It was, and the railroad called it the switchboard because it was kind of like a place of central operations. And so we sneak in through the back, and there's a bunch of dead railroad agents and a bunch of synths, and we kill all them. But we're here to get some sort of prototype. I don't know what it does, because the other thing about the railroad is they never tell you anything. They always compartmentalize information in case someone gets captured, then they can't be, like, information can't be extracted from them, or limited information can only be extracted from them.
Mm-hmm.
So, we go and, fight all these synths. We get the prototype, and while doing this, I find some like pre-war records of like a AI that the railroad was, or not the railroad, an AI that the pre-war government was working on called PAM. That was some sort of like predictive thing, like a predictive intelligence.
PAM.
Mm-hmm. And then we get the thing, we leave, we go back to the railroad. It turns out PAM was a real thing, and the railroad took her because there's another one of those robots who lives in the railroad headquarters in the hideout, and she's an interesting character, but she's just there. What else happened? Do I get to learn what that prototype is for?
I don't know.
Anyway, that's what I do, and then they send me out after that to like go check out there's like a synth who needs to be moved out of Bunker Hill, so I have to go meet their agent there. I give him the code phrase, and he's like, I'm going to take him to an extraction point at this this place up in Cambridge. So like,
take me to church.
So go up there, clear this place out because it's full of raiders. I do that. Then I meet a synth, or like that guy shows up. He's like some old man who lives in Bunker Hill. He shows up with the synth. The synth is like, the old man told me not to talk, so I'm not going to. And then one of the railroad like runners or whatever shows up, and he's like, we're going to transport you to the safe house. Like, I need to, there's still like raiders out here, so, provide me cover. So it's like, in the dark of night, we have this escaped synth with us, and he's taking us to the safe house. He's going to lead the way. And we're like going down the streets, and the raider and like super mutant encampments in this game sometimes will have a like a spotlight, right? And if you step into this spotlight, in the grand tradition of all video games, an alarm starts going off because it means you've been spotted. So I'm following this dude, and we are coming up onto a raider encampment that has a spotlight in front of it, and he just runs right into it. He just like he's like, we got to be really careful because there's all these raiders, and he just like, I have to follow him, I can't stop him, and he just like runs right into the spotlight, which sets off the raiders, which then sets off, as we're fighting with them, the super mutant encampment across the street. And so I have to fight all of them. It takes forever. But then eventually, like, we get to the safe house, and then I'm like, okay, I've leveled up enough. That's great. I love it. Back out to the Divide. I mean, the Glowing Sea. I run through all of that crap, and then I meet the Children of the Atom. Remember those guys?
Yeah.
Well,
they're cool.
They're here, and that's kind of it.
Damn.
Like, it's another place where this feels very almost like Fallout 1, where there's like high variability between like how written different places are. Because unless there was something that I missed, like you show up and there's like this huge crater and you're like, damn, what is this? There are people living here? Holy crap. And it's the Children of the Atom from Fallout 3. That's cool to see them back. They're still out here being kooky and worshiping like nuclear radiation and waste. And that's kind of it. That's still what they're doing.
As far as I could tell, yeah, that's what they're up to.
Like,
I asked them where Virgil was.
Yep, that's all. They're like, oh, he lives over there.
Yeah, he lives over in that cave.
It's like, well, thank you. So I go over to Virgil's cave and I skirt around the friggin' Deathclaw that's sleeping outside of it. And go into the cave and I meet Virgil, who turns out to be a super mutant.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I can tell because I feel like I've been complaining a lot. But another thing about like the conversation system here is that because it's so much like the character says something, you say something in response, and because of how the scripting and the voice acting has to work with that, I like sort of missed the opportunity to ask him like, hey, why are you a super mutant? And so now I just don't know. Like, presumably, as an Institute scientist, he did something, got exposed to something. But I know I had that option, but because I didn't choose it when it was there, I think I might have gone with like a speech or persuasion option or something instead, because those are also like limited and you get experience from them. So I try to hit them when I can. Mm-hmm. I just don't get that information because after I talk to him, I can't like enter into a normal conversation with him again. He just has like his normal bark where he tells me to go off and do the thing that I need to do, which is this is when he reveals there's a teleportation machine.
Yeah. In case you were unclear on that. By the way, it definitely is a teleporter. Yeah, I mean, there's stuff I think when you talk to him later where he's like, you know, I was in the biosciences division. Mm-hmm. So, you know, you get, he Mr. Hyded himself a little bit, I think. Mm-hmm. Might be the thing. But, yeah, he tells me, dang, where did I learn this? Nick Valentine. Oh, I put on my power armor. Sorry to detract. Because the way I got out here is I just wore my power armor.
Yeah.
And ran the whole way. When I put on my power armor with Nick Valentine nearby, he said, I always wondered what you'd look like as a robot. I thought, Nick Valentine, you pervert.
That's pretty interesting.
Don't objectify me as a robot man. It's awful. In my notes, I wrote sex thing. Jesus.
The thing he loved to say to me while I was wandering through the glowing sea, he was like, my Geiger counter's doing backflips. And it's like, you think?
Oh, the Children of the Atom, when I talked to I forget what her name was, but she explains what the Children of the Atom are all about, and she says they believe in infinite work through division. I was like, this is cool. Whoever wrote like the little like theology parts of the Children of the Atom, that's great.
That is great.
It's unfortunately there's only like 11 things you can learn.
They should be a faction.
They're all really good.
You should be able to join them.
And blow things up?
Yes, like they want to bring like the glow of Adam to everything. Like maybe this is, you know, Death Knell from the end of the New Vegas playthrough coming through a little bit. But like you should absolutely be able to get out here and be like, yeah, you know what? You guys are right. Like, let's bring the glow of Adam to the wasteland.
All right, well, let me pull up my my page I have of ways to... what was it called? Option to play as a ghoul or as a super mutant in Fallout 4. Let me edit that page to type that in. We'll get into that in some future episode. Yeah, so he basically says, hey, here's what you need. In order to do the stuff, you know, to use the teleporter, you got to kill a courser. But they're murder machines. They're impossible to kill. Oh, if you get near one, you're dead, Buster. Don't even bother. You're gonna get killed. And then it tells me, listen to the frequency on the radio, and it will beep to tell you when you're close to one. And I go to CIT, a thinly disguised MIT, and I listen for the beeps. Did you did the same thing?
Oh yes, I finally wandered across the Charles and had all the warm feelings flow over me as I see that great dome that we all love to admire. And
the one with the car on top?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool.
And I pull up the radio and I'm like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, because it gives you like a percentage for how close you are to the courser.
Yep, it does do that.
And I thought, silly me, I assumed that I would find the courser somewhere in the location where I had been told to go and do this. But no, it actually draws you all the way out to, like, I don't know, down to the other side of Kendall Square, which, doesn't fully exist here, but that's kind of like the direction you end up going. And you get pulled into this building called, like, Green Tech Genetics, I think.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, and so you go in, and there's like a bunch of gunners in there. Gunners being like a mercenary group or company, / raider group or company. The distinction is very, very nebulous here. Anyway, all these guys are in there, and they're like hollering about something. Like, I guess they're pursuing the courser too, right? Is like, that's immediately what I understand, but I don't really know, necessarily why they would be doing this. But then it's like fighting your way up this tower through a whole bunch of chaos, and like hearing over the loudspeaker, like, I guess the gunner commands, telling you like where the courser is and like what he's doing as you're trying to track him down.
Mm-hmm. It's extremely funny that like every time you go into there's like basically the way it works is it's like a really interesting kind of dungeon design. You're going up in the building. Mm-hmm. And so you have to cross through an atrium several times. And every time you cross through the atrium, you just see these like explosions and all kinds of shit going on like slightly above you. And it's extremely loud. And you're supposed to be like, my God, what's going on? What kind of combat could be going on up there?
Mm-hmm.
And in reality, it's not particularly interesting.
Yeah.
But...
Oh, and that's This is where I get a lot of use out of my cool new weapon that I promised I would talk about. When I joined the railroad, and when Deacon and I went to the coffee shop, we found a guy named, I think his name was like Johnny Whispers.
Uh-huh.
Or maybe it was Tommy Whispers. It was something like that. I like pop out, like we found this guy who'd like locked himself in a room, but he'd eventually been killed. And Deacon was like, Johnny Whispers. He went down fighting. You should be the one to have his gun. And I got a special gun called Deliverer that is a small gun, uses 10mm ammo. It has a silencer, and it gets like 25% accuracy rating in VATS, I think, and it uses like an infinitesimal amount of action points. So when I'm using VATS, I can just like plink, 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 plink someone really quickly. So I'm just like doing headshots left and right on gunners here.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's a good little gun.
Yeah, it's nice.
This was hard as nails. Everything... When your enemies have laser guns and you have a sword, although at this point, I don't remember if this is where I had it or not. I don't think so. At some point here, I bought a super sledge. And so it really made some things a little bit easier for me. But I think at this point, I still had my Chinese officer sword. Mm-hmm. And so swinging that bad boy around and doing it. And you just kind of carve your way up to the top. It's not, I wouldn't say it's hyper complicated. And you get all the way up there, and there's a courser.
Mm-hmm.
He has a very detailed face for some reason.
I didn't see that much of it because he like heard me coming or something, and he was like, "You've been following me this whole time." And I'm like, "Yeah, whatever." Mm-hmm. And I pulled out my gun and I like shot him 6 times in the head. And then he turned invisible. And but being invisible doesn't mean you're bulletproof, and so I continued to shoot him even though I couldn't target him in VATS. And then Nick and I killed him.
Yeah, so that kind of happened for me too. I kind of wish the coursers had slightly better AI on that, because yeah, it's exactly what happened. So like we go into combat and I swing on him. I think I VATS hit him. Mm-hmm. It's like bing bang. So I get him like twice. And then he goes invisible, but I can still see him, Mm-hmm. And so I'm wailing on him with my thing. And then between Nick and I, we push him into the corner because you're on like level 3 of an elevator complex.
Mm-hmm.
and there's like a little gap around the elevator, where the thing ends. And Nick and I are just kind of punching him and stuff. And he just, goes right over the railing and falls 3 stories to his death. It was really weird. And I don't know why that happened. I don't know. And because he was invisible, I couldn't see, like, did he ragdoll or something? When I hit him one time? Did I get like a crit that ragdoll him? I have no idea. But, yep, that's how I killed the devious courser.
Who's got a name that's like some numbers and letters.
Kyle 22.
Not even that. It's like
11241.
Yeah, it's more like
22. That. K.
And then there's like
K1 1 3.
And then there's like a woman like it locked in a room over to the side. Did you find her?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why this was all happening. The gunners had locked the synth up. And they were just like hanging out, living here. Mm-hmm. And they'd locked the synth up, and the courser came and got the synth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you like, she tells you where there's like a code to open the door, and you do. And she's like, yeah, I'm a synth. Bye.
Yeah, it really is like, maybe we'll see her later or something. But she basically says, like, I don't need you to help me anymore because I have to prove that I can live by myself in the wasteland. And then she runs away.
Yep.
I feel certain I'm going to see her dead body somewhere.
And then I don't know how this worked for you, but in a fairly perplexing moment for me, I got the chip that I needed from the courser's head, right? That's like it's the thing that keys into the teleportation frequency. So I get that, and then just immediately it's like, okay, go back to the railroad and talk to Tinker Tom, who's like the sort of like techie dude at the railroad, but like,
yep.
It's interesting how this just happened automatically. Like, why would I do this? Why would I go to Tinker Tom? How do I know to do this? But
oh yeah, that is fascinating because I had to go back to Dr. Amari, and she was like, "Hey, I know these people. They're from the railroad. They go choo choo choo."
So that
and beep beep boop boop.
That makes a lot of sense. That's like a more natural way to, I guess, be put into contact with the faction than the way that I did it sort of by accident. It does feel weird that like we are just now meeting another key faction, though, in terms of pacing.
Well, unless you think that the game is getting near its end, or even its midpoint. Which it's not.
Oh my god.
This is basically the end of what we're about to talk about, is the end of the first act.
Okay. I thought the thing flying over was the end of the first act.
I kind of thought that too until we did this episode, and I was like, oh no, this is it. Because now we have every faction is in play, and we are like in the Institute. Spoilies.
Okay, yeah.
For something we're going to talk about in 5 minutes. So, you know what I mean? Like, but yeah, I think the first world state change at the time feels like the end of the first act. I think this is actually it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And especially looking at the flow chart for how to complete the game, which I've had to look at.
Oh my god.
To figure out what our episodes are.
Yeah. So you go see Dr. Amari. That's interesting. And she puts you into contact with the railroad. Do you have to do the whole Freedom Trail thing?
Yep.
Oh my god.
It's not fun.
Yeah.
I had to run around a lot of stuff. I kept getting one shot by a super mutant with a missile.
Oh, at Faneuil Hall?
Yep.
Yeah, he's bad. The real Faneuil Hall is much less dangerous. It's just a big food
But
court.
weirdly enough, still full of super mutants.
And they're hitting you with rocket launchers, but the rocket launchers are jumbo hot dogs.
Sure.
Yeah.
I get that joke.
Mm-hmm. No, it's... People who've been to Faneuil Hall know. So anyway, yeah, like I went back to the railroad and Tinker Tom's like, oh, hell yeah, like this is great. We have to watch him like do this animation where he like puts the chip into his computer and then like taps on keys a bunch and says an incredible amount of technobabble.
Banish this from video games. This is such a thing that people love to do. Bethesda loves to do it too, but it's in all kinds of video games of like take the thing and then make me sit through a phenomenal amount of time that it would take to do it while hearing the like single person narrate their adventure.
Mm-hmm.
It is not interesting to hear someone talk about what they are doing in an abstract way.
Yeah.
He might as well, for a full 2 minutes, have been like, and now I'm adding 1, and now I'm adding 7, that's 8, and now I'm adding 2, that's 10, and now I'm adding 5, that's 15.
That's sort of like what he's doing, right? At one point, he's like, oh, I gotta factor out all the prime numbers or something. It's
right, yeah. Doing an old Blaine puzzle over here.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that kind of is what's happening. So I just hate it.
Mm-hmm.
I hate that stuff in video games. It's such filler to me. Not a fave.
Mm-hmm. But luckily he like figures everything out, and he's like, well, this is like the most important, like this is the most complicated piece of technology that humanity has ever devised. But luckily the materials are all super common. So we could just build one of these things now that I know how to do it. But we need a place to do it.
Oh, interesting. That's not happens to me.
Yeah.
So I get that, and I forget who I have to talk. I talked to someone in the middle here.
Probably Desdemona, who's the leader of the faction.
No, I talked to Desdemona, but I talked to someone else. I think I go back to talk to Preston Garvey. You didn't talk to Preston Garvey at all?
No, not at all.
Oh, so somewhere here I get like a quest change that's like, it's like, all right, you've got the key, good luck. And then it's like, go, maybe I went and talked back to Dr. Amari, anyway, somewhere I had to transition. It was basically figure out which faction you want to do the building with.
Mm.
And I could talk to the Minutemen, I could talk to the Railroad, or I could talk to the Brotherhood of Steel.
Mm-hmm.
And I talked to Preston Garvey, who then told me to go talk to Sturgis. And Sturgis was like, man, I don't know. I just build stuff. But this is like a pretty good... Oh, I do know what happened. I'm so sorry. I know what happened. After I got this code from Tinker Tom, I went back to Virgil. And Virgil told me, hey, you need to basically... Here's the schematic that I've gotten from the code here. You're going to have to get someone to help you actually build it. I can't do that. I'm a super mutant and I live in the wasteland.
Oh, I also did this, but
Gotcha.
okay.
Gotcha. And so you went back to the Railroad to do the thing with them, and I went to the Minutemen. And Sturgis was like, fuck, man, I don't know. I guess I can help you build this. I'm a guy who spends 99% of his time just banging on a wall with a hammer, but I bet I could help figure out this technology thing. And then I built it.
Yeah. Yeah, I had to do another like little railroad quest. They were like, hey, go talk to Pam, who's like, she's another Assaultron, like Cleo, but has, let's say, a less coded voice. And she's like, I've been like, we need another extraction point for synths. And I ran all of my predictive models, and it's this randomly generated location that I'm going to point you to now, which for me turns out to be like a drive-in theater way up near Sanctuary Hills.
Huh.
Yeah. So I zip up there and I kill a whole bunch of mole rats, and then that becomes a settlement, and I get to put down the platform, and that marks it at like the first part of the teleporter platform, and that marks it as the location where all that's going to go down. And so Desdemona and Tinker Tom show up and give me the specs for the other things that I need to build, which are largely things that, and I'm unclear on how this is happening, either things that the game is just like providing me like as a courtesy, or it's stuff that I already have, because I have been like, you know, collecting junk and throwing it into workshops.
Mm-hmm. It's the stuff you already have.
Okay. I wasn't sure, like, just in terms of like amount of stuff because I haven't really been paying attention to settlement things. I wasn't really sure what my numbers were there.
Yeah, it's not a huge amount of stuff, I wouldn't say, but it is the kind of thing where if you truly had not engaged with the system at all, this would force you to do it.
Yeah. Which I think is pretty cool. Like, I'm not a huge fan of the settlement system in general, but I like that it becomes relevant to the main quest here in like a very specific way. I think that's interesting. Like that you have to build a thing for the main quest. I think that's nice design. So I have to... there are a few things that I don't have that are like rarer materials. They're like, go to, like, if you need like a military grade circuit board, then go to an old military outpost. And if you need a biometric scanner, go to an old hospital. And I choose first to go to the old hospital. that's down near Milton, and that's the one it marks on my map. And I go in there and kill some robots, and I not only get the biometric scanner, but I also get the circuit board I need, so I don't need to go to the other place. Yeah. So then I go back and I like build the teleporter, which is this massive, bizarre thing. It's very funny to me that I have done this. Like, I have built a massive teleportation machine in the lot of an old abandoned drive-in. No walls or anything. I didn't bother putting up any turrets or like bringing people here. It's just like in the middle of the wilderness. Anyone can see it. And it's got like 6 or 7 like small gasoline generators, because those are the only things I know how to build, and I've like linked them all together to power this gigantic blue lightning flashing machine.
Yeah. Of course. Now, who helps you use it? Because like Sturgis is there the whole time for me, and he's like, all right, let's put this bad boy together.
For me, it's Tinker Tom and Desdemona. They're both there.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, you just you turn that bad boy on and step through it.
Well, I didn't step into it because I figure that's probably going to end this quest and start something new. And I knew that we were that this was where our kind of finishing point for today. But yeah, that's kind of where it left me. There's like, okay, we've got this powered up. You better use this soon.
Yeah, because it's Sturgis has a very funny line where he, as you're powering it up, and you step onto it, you know, this little scripted sequence starts, and he's like, it starts like breaking, and he says, "Don't worry about that tube; it's just a decorative tube." And it's this big piece of like ductwork flying around in the sky.
That is pretty funny. Oh, the other thing that I got for this specifically is Desdemona gives me a long talk about how when I get to the Institute, I need to. I don't know why she expects this to work, first of all, but she needs me to infiltrate the Institute. That I am supposed to teleport in, and then somehow not have them immediately attack me. Which I right. I don't know what's going to go on here, right? But I'm just thinking like, I have cracked their secret teleportation technology, and I'm going to show up in there, and her point of business for me is like, whatever you do, don't make them hostile, because what she wants is for me to become a double agent. And there's a mole inside the Institute, someone who is codename Patriot. By the way, I got to pick a code name as part of the Railroad.
Oh my god!
Yeah, my code name is Professor, so that's what everyone calls me.
Great. Finally.
Yeah, finally. So there's a person inside the Institute, codenamed Patriot, who I'm supposed to try to find a way to contact, because they have been leaking the Railroad information and helping them like liberate synths. So I am supposed to play nice with the Institute, but find out who Patriot is and set up another communication channel with them.
Well, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Yeah.
I'm not doing any of that. Like, I don't have any. The only kind of extant quest around this I have is that Virgil asked me to please go to his previous office and get his serum that will cure him.
Oh, yes. He also asked me to do that. Did you read his terminal?
No.
He has a terminal where he kind of like, in his little cave where he talks a little bit about his past. And he's very bad at typing because his hands are too big for keyboards now.
Yep.
That's an amusing little detail that is also deeply sad, because he's like becoming a super mutant, and so becoming less capable of managing his emotions. I don't know.
Yeah, it's sad.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to be a Mr. Hyde.
Mm-hmm.
Well, That's it.
That's it.
Next time we're just doing some faction quests, I think, right? That's the plan?
Yeah. Did you wait? So you stepped into the teleporter?
I did, but then immediately saved my game and then quit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you can do faction quests after you go into the Institute?
Oh, shit. I guess not. Fudge.
That's why I didn't go in, because I knew we were going to be doing like faction side quests next time.
I beefed it. All right. Well, it looks like we're doing the next couple major quests then.
Okay.
I hath beefed it.
All right.
But well, dang. All right. Well, we'll figure out what we're doing next, since I myself have messed this up. And we'll be back in 2 weeks with that.
All right. Until next time, folks. War never changes, but Fallout sure does.
Everything changed when the bombs fell, except